All right, welcome everyone. Very glad to have you all here. This is our March officer webinar, and the topic is a town hall with our current Undergraduate Supreme Council members, whom you will meet and hear a lot of really great information from as the evening goes on. My name is Kristen Fouts, and I have the honor of serving the fraternity as the Director of Education and Leadership Development. Again, really grateful for your time here tonight, and as well as to our panelists and others who are here. A little bit of information about kind of what we will cover this evening. This webinar, first and foremost, is important not only because it's part of our sort of overall officer training and development webinar series, but the opportunity to serve one's organization in any capacity is really valuable. And certainly the opportunity to use your voice as an undergraduate member of the organization, I think, is the most powerful thing of all. For you to be able to have an influence on the decision-making, processes of the Supreme Council, to be able to learn how the fraternity operates kind of behind the scenes, and to be part of some pretty big conversations. That's not only good for your personal and your leadership development, but it's also good for your chapter to kind of have that that level of accessibility to the council and to the organization as well, and just to be able to have sort of firsthand access to someone who has that voice and who can answer some key questions directly with the Supreme Council. So there are many reasons why you might want to join the Supreme Council, and I think our current undergraduate Supreme Council members will share their experiences and their reasons with you. Something might resonate with you or a brother who might not be here tonight. And so we certainly encourage you to share whatever you do learn here with other brothers who might be eligible or interested to any degree in learning more about the opportunity. Want you to stay put through the entire presentation so that you can complete the post assessment. If you are here to earn, hopefully you're here to earn an SOE point in addition to learning from our panel members. But in order to earn that SOE point for your chapter, we need you to complete the post assessment. I will share that link at the end of the program. In just a few minutes, we will have the panelists introduce themselves and kind of dive in to their content. But first, I want to share, let me do that, and then I will dive into what we're going to cover. So we tonight have 3 of our 4 current undergraduate Supreme Council members with us tonight. Unfortunately, Ben Cook from the University of Kansas could not join us, but we have Jeffrey Harburg, we have Joshua Roseman, and we have Matthew Pardo. And again, I will let them introduce themselves here in just a minute when I open up the floor. 4 outstanding men who have been involved different degrees, different lengths of time with the Supreme Council. You'll hear about that tonight. Really participating in some special programs, attending some of our programs as facilitators, just really having some neat experiences. And I'm sure they have perspective on their membership experience, as well as the overall ZBT experience that they would be happy to pass along. So again, very excited to have those 4 council members with us tonight. We also have Ricky Kirby, who serves as the Chief Experience Officer for the fraternity. He, at one point, was also an undergraduate Supreme Council member and now works for the fraternity headquarters. So again, another unique perspective. You have probably either heard of Ricky or heard from Ricky in some way, but we are grateful to have him on board as well to share not only some of his experience and what he got out of his time on the council, but also a little bit more about how to apply the various criteria and whatnot that comes with the position. So again, very grateful to have all of them with us this evening. So here's some of the content that we'll cover, that each of the panelists will cover. And then, of course, we will include plenty of time at the end for questions and answers. But again, we'll have each of them share a little bit about why they chose to apply, what was part of their decision-making process for kind of making that leap from chapter leadership or just their chapter experience to the national stage. What they've learned as a result of their experience, certainly personal development, skills and whatnot, but also leadership, things that will carry over into their professional lives and certainly their lives as a ZBT alumnus. Then, of course, a general overview of the role. What does it mean to be a member of the Supreme Council? What are the core responsibilities? What are the time commitments, the travel commitments, and whatnot? And most importantly, how to apply, where to find the information, what to expect out of the application, and subsequent steps in the process, and so on. So hoping to cover any of the questions that you might have come here with, but certainly, again, if you have additional questions, we will open the floor and let you ask those at the end. But I'm sure none of the panelists would mind if you typed a question into the chat. I could, kind of ask them as they're sharing as well. So without further ado, I will stop sharing my screen so that is not in the way. And we are going to start this evening with Matthew Pardo from Tulane University. Matthew is going to introduce himself and kind of share a little bit about his experience. So take it away, Matthew.
Hi, I am Matthew Pardo. I am a brother at the Sigma chapter at Tulane University. I'm graduating in 2025. I guess I'll start off with the first thing on that list of the agenda, which would be why I applied. The year going into when I applied, I had been my alumni chair at the Sigma chapter, and I had met so many people, so many brothers specific to Sigma that had an exceptional experience and wanted that same experience for the current brothers and future brothers. I saw that, and at the same time, I saw this position, and I saw it as a very unique opportunity to kind of carry that over and help facilitate not only the current brothers of ZBT, but also the future brothers of ZBT. And I thought it was just an awesome opportunity in general.
All right. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue, please.
No, that was it. I thought
okay.
That was it.
Good. Sorry about that. Jeff, do you want to go second?
Sure. Hey, everyone. My name's Jeffrey. So I know it said I am a part of Alpha Delta at USC. I was. I've since transferred. No, it's okay. I've since transferred to the University of Texas at Austin. And I'm the longest tenured undergraduate Supreme Counselor at this point. I joined a couple years ago. And my family has been very involved in ZBT for a really long time. My dad, my older brother. So my brother served on the Supreme Council as well. So I had an idea of what it was. But when I joined the chapter at USC and I spent some time there and I got involved and I got to know the guys, I became a programming chair. I just realized that is also something I want to do because it boosted my brother and my dad's chapters so much when they were in school. And I knew that it would be a great leadership experience for me and it would help boost my chapter. And it did, and it has, and it's boosted the chapter at UT since I've been there. It's very helpful to have that connection with nationals. So it's been a great experience, and I'm sure we'll talk about that a lot more tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Jeffrey. Josh?
Okay. Hello, my name is Josh Roseman, and I'm a brother of A to Zai, or ZBT A to Zai at UNC Charlotte. So I was only in one term. So I'm only like 6 or 7 months in on my term due to the way like just timing worked out. I joined fall 21 right after COVID and immediately hopped in recruitment for my chapter. So I did that as a chair for about a year. And then same time, like within 2 weeks, I joined IFC's recruitment as well as my own chapter, became the recruitment director for my own chapter. So that's kind of how I got on board. I started gaining experience very quickly right after I joined. I had to go to President's Academy, I guess spring 23, because our chapter president, he couldn't go. He was in the Marines, or Navy, I guess. So that's where I first really started meeting people at nationals. I got involved there in that 3-day span or so, made a lot of connections, including Ricky. And that way I had a connection. I had a kind of a foot in the door in the way for our chapter because no one in my chapter had any kind of connection with nationals. They didn't really want to. So I kind of came that bridge, if you will. So months go by, my chapter advisor, he's very close with Libby and a few others to where it's like I got heavily recommended for the job. They wanted me to apply. And it was kind of like, talked to my mom about it. I'm in management and everything else. So it's like I wanted that experience because of the business connection as well as just to see what it was like. So obviously I joined, I guess I accepted what, April or so of last year, yeah, last year. Been on it for a couple months now, a little bit more than that, but I've learned a lot because my first exec term, we had like 6 meetings in an entire year. So it's like I didn't really know what a meeting was supposed to look like. Now I'm chapter president, so I've been able to learn a lot and kind of establish an official like meeting room essentially. So it's been very impactful for our chapter in particular, and we've gained a lot from it, I would say, as well as myself professionally.
Very cool. Well, let's dive into that then with each of you. Kind of what have been some of the biggest takeaways in terms of what you've learned through your experience, either about yourself or about the fraternity or sort of general skills? Matthew, can we circle back to you?
Sure. I think that the biggest thing that you're going to learn across the board would be the process of corporate governance and truly understanding that. And while it may not seem like a lot initially and going into it, it's a huge part of anything you do post grad. And it's something that is an experience that will only serve to benefit you in whatever career avenue you truly go down. And it's something that you can't like you can get experience in other places, but specifically to understand, for example, ZBT and how it's run, it really gives you a true understanding of how most companies, nonprofits, many organizations like ZBT are run that only serve to benefit you.
Very cool. Very cool. Jeffrey, how about you?
Yeah, it's almost easier to list the things I haven't learned in this position. It's so fulfilling. I mean, you learn so much. First of all, from a personal level, as Matthew said, you get to learn how to be on a board. You learn the corporate governance structure. I mean, these are invaluable things for when we're adults, or we are adults, but when we're in the real world. But also from a fraternity and a chapter standpoint, you get to oversee what is happening across the country in every ZBT chapter. And there are some really incredible things that are happening in other chapters that you may not have even thought of, heard of. And you can take these ideas back to your people, make your chapter better. And there's not a single negative that I can think of being a part of this council. You learn how to network as well. There's so many incredible, influential, smart people who are on this council. And I know I'm going to have those connections forever. So I highly, highly recommend. It's been amazing.
Very cool. All right, Josh, how about you?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's been very eye-opening because it's my first real world example, I guess, on how again a board is supposed to run. I would also say kind of what Jeff and part of us said too is I guess how much you learn and how much you see what other chapters do, whether it's them getting in trouble, and you can kind of take them like maybe we should look at things differently, or it's like even if it's very small, it's what I've learned. It could be very small things that your chapter could be doing that could get you in a bad situation. And you also learn that nationals really is here to help you, which is really beneficial, obviously. Also, I mean, just in simple terms, like the traveling aspect of it, you get to travel. It's really cool. You learn that all these people are fun people to be around, especially when you do this stuff outside of meetings too. Like it is really it's a lot of fun. That's the first real time, I guess, that I've had to travel by myself without friends or groups or anything else. So it's like I've gotten comfortable hopping on a plane and not worrying about it. And then just really listening, because it's like I've been on my exec board and IFC, but it's like, you hop in some of these meetings. If my first meeting in New York, I had no idea what was going on for the first day. All of our, older members of the council, they're wanting us to talk about, what we see, what is our perspective on certain topics. And I'm like, I'm just trying to get my feet wet in the water. You know what I mean? It was brutal, but over time it's become really, really fun. Again, I've learned a lot from the experience.
Can I add one more
Great.
thing?
Yes, please go ahead.
Another invaluable thing that I've learned from this is you realize how tedious and how complicated the decision-making process is at the top. A lot of people in their chapters like, oh, I hate nationals for this reason or that reason. It is really hard to manage the number of chapters that ZBT has. And I feel like I have a bit more of an understanding, a bit more compassion towards people who make those decisions, because you learn a lot about the implications of everything you do, big or small.
Yeah, that perspective, I mean, that's as macro as you can get, right? We always encourage, undergraduates, especially, chapter officers, but really any member to attend national programs so they kind of appreciate the experience in ZBT or any organization outside of their chapter, but certainly to keep going, above and beyond, to the national council level. You see a lot of things, you hear a lot of things. Josh, to your point, you see what not to do. You get some great ideas of what other chapters are doing, and that's a great opportunity to apply both to your own chapter experience. So yeah, that perspective is really eye-opening in a lot of ways. So tell us, each of you, a little bit about well, and Ricky too, kind of a general overview of the role. Ricky, I don't know if you want to kind of start with that. Talk about, Josh talked a little bit about travel. That's a key piece, other commitments. And then maybe each of you, the current members could talk about maybe an experience in particular that you just really enjoyed or really found fascinating, that folks might not think is a part of the role. That could be something unique. But Ricky, I'll turn it over to you for sort of a general overview.
Yeah, when I forget one of those things, just jog my memory, or if I get to rambling, then tell me to get back on track with one of those. I will clarify, Kristen, I was actually not an undergraduate Supreme Counselor. I never even knew it was a
left
thing.
and right. I
Yeah,
apologize.
no. Well, Jeffrey is still listed as USC on the website, so that's no. We need to get that fixed. So apologies, Jeffrey.
Okay.
No, I was what Beanie was. I actually took his seat as the advisor liaison on the Supreme Council. I served President John Frieden before coming into my current role, and Beanie served President Norm Wass, and so we both got that really unique other opportunity. I told him I had to clarify that because some people go back and actually watch these recordings and they let you know it. And so I said that and someone who knew that, so I just need to clarify that.
Thank you.
Sure.
And I said I was just going to back it up more to make it even more confusing. Like when I was an undergrad, I always trusted Ricky as Undergraduate Supreme Counselor. He was the best. So this really, really confused everyone.
Yeah, then get me for violating one of the tenets of our credo. Great. Yep. So, at the root of it, you think of every corporation. Let's talk about Chick-fil-A. Chick-fil-A has a lot of franchises. In our world, that would be chapters. Chick-fil-A has a headquarters office that's based in Atlanta. We have a headquarters office that's based in Carmel, Indiana. And then there's a board. That board of directors, which we call the Supreme Council, is who hires and reviews and if necessary fires the CEO of any corporation. And our board is that Supreme Council. So Libby, our chief executive officer, reports to that Supreme Council. Kristen and I and our entire staff on the headquarters reports to Libby, and then those franchises, chapters, flow up kind of to headquarters. So everyone always kind of looks at headquarters or nationals as making all of these decisions, doing all these things. All we do all day, every day is execute the will and wishes of our CEO, which is the wishes of the Supreme Council. We very, very rarely make decisions. We execute a lot of decisions and we make a lot of determinations based upon the policies that have been set by the board. But the board sets all of the policies and the direction for the organization, hands that to the CEO. We're responsible for implementing that and ensuring that the franchises, chapters are abiding by the wishes of that council. So we do have 4 undergraduates, just like we've been talking about this entire time. That is very unique to ZBT. A lot of organizations have liaisons or they have non-voting representatives that are undergraduates. Our 4 are full voting members. They are legal board members, just like if you went and Googled Chick-fil-A's board, everybody there, our undergraduates have the same exact legal authorities and legal responsibilities and rights and privileges as any other board member. They are not liaisons. They are not non-voting. They are full voting. Libby reports to Matthew Pardo as much as she reports to Lawrence Bolleton. And, people laugh at that, people giggle at that, but that is exactly what it is. So the power and the influence that you have within the organization is very immense. So there's some of the requirements are you are required to sit on a committee. Some of our committees have not gotten back meetings since the pandemic, and so making a sincere effort to try to get them back to meeting before July 1. And so typically that would be about one meeting a month, and then about 1 hour in addition to that meeting to do prep work or any homework for that committee. And then you have a quarterly board meeting, which is usually 2 to 3 days. 1 is virtual and 3 you are traveling, and one of those travel instances is convention. And so during convention, while everybody's in sessions doing all this other stuff, you are in board meetings all day for your summer board meeting. And at those meetings, before those meetings, excuse me, there's like 160-page workbook that you have to take time to read through, look at all the presentations, because when you show up in those board meetings, you should be asking questions of, oh, Kristen, like I see you manage this situation. Supreme Council policy and directive has been this, like, why did you go this route, yada, yada, yada. And it may be an opportunity for clarification, conversation, on and on and on. And so you do a little bit of that retrospective, but you also take on a lot of new business, talking about chapters that should close, chapters that should be added. You talk a lot about the budget. You talk about current trends and current issues. We spend a lot of time talking about mental health crises and the state of mental health on our college campuses and on our men. We talk a lot about sustainable growth, all of those topics from a very high level, that once the Supreme Council kind of comes to some consensus, the staff then take that back and try to execute on those wishes. The Supreme Council is also the primary driver of the strategic plan. And so deciding where the fraternity is going to go over the next 5 to 20 years. And there are a lot of decisions in that strategic plan. We have a strategic plan now that's coming up that is heavily alumni focused. And so, is that going to impact the undergraduate experience? Could that impact the undergraduate experience? To be determined. Or is it going to contribute to the alumni experience or to the undergraduate experience? Kind of to be determined. And it's a big part of that undergraduate voice to ensure that they're still getting the resources on the ground and on their campuses and getting the things they desire and they need, from us, and making that strategic plan a little bit more nimble. So a lot of meetings, a lot of conversations, a lot of reading. And then you're also supposed to kind of be the voice of the undergraduates. Well, not even kind of, you're supposed to be the voice of the undergraduates. And so people get into this mindset that we only pick chapter presidents. We only pick people from big schools. False and false. We really want a blend of institutions. We want a blend of chapters. We want people, in different athletic conferences, on and on and on. We do prefer people who have engaged in some of our programs. So just like Josh mentioned earlier, that's not a favorites thing. That's just because you've seen some of the stuff we do, some of the work we do, and so you just don't show up with a complete blank slate. So, preferential treatment will be given to some of those folks who participated in the BOIs, the ROIs, PLA, convention, the Emerging Leaders Institute, Israel Now, the regional events, on and on and on, just because you've seen some of the work that the council has directed to do. The council is responsible for policies like the 72-hour initiation rule. They were responsible for the non-pledging, non-hazing rules. Responsible for all Constitution and Brotherhood Code updates, all of those things, and that's sort of kind of what it looks like. What did I miss, Kristen, while I rambled?
I think that's good.
Okay.
In terms of, again, kind of what to expect. The not the basics. You went a little bit deeper than the basics, but generalities about the role. Current counselors, is there anything again that you maybe weren't expecting, or kind of a favorite part of the experience that you want to highlight?
I mean, I have a short anecdote, I guess.
Yeah, go ahead.
So Ricky, pretty much explained the gist of the responsibilities. But when we go on these quarterly meetings, these trips, they are not just, sitting in meetings the entire day. We do sit in meetings for a long time, but we have some fun excursions. We've gotten to know each other on a deeper level. We went to Annapolis, Maryland a few months ago, and we went to the Navy Air Force football game. And that was a really, really cool experience. So along with the duties, responsibilities, obviously that's the reason that we're there, but we do find ways to get to know each other, to have fun. Even as, a young adult, it's still fun to us too. It's not just fun for the older people. But it's a great time. It's a great time.
I bet they really like having you guys around too. I
They
bet
do.
the
That's their favorite
perspective
part.
and the
Yeah.
conversation. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and it truly is its own chapter. Like, I mean, it
Mhm.
really like is its own brotherhood within the brotherhood. It becomes like its own chapter. Which has its pros and cons, but it basically is its own brotherhood within a brotherhood.
Yeah. Matthew, any sort of favorite experiences or thoughts?
I would say probably the most meaningful, at least personally to me, is Ricky mentioned this about serving on committees, and I've had the honor of being the actual co-chair of the committee for combating anti-Semitism on campus. Jeffrey is also on this committee. It's been kind of a nice experience, a meaningful experience to basically help work and plan about what ZBT needs to do nationally in response to everything that's happened specifically since October 7th. And it's just something that has kind of opened up to a lot of different opinions, a lot of different perspectives that just help build this plan of where to move forward to help the most brothers.
Awesome. Joshua, how about you?
Yeah, for me, I would say one, just the networking part of it. You don't know who's involved in what until later on. For example, my chapter, we're in the process of hopefully getting a house on like around campus. I met a few people on council or that are involved with the council at least. Became really good friends with them. They're younger guys, and then come to find out a couple months later, I found out that he's on the committee that helps decide, where these houses go, where the money, how the money gets there, like all that fun stuff. So that's you laugh at it in the process of it, but it really is helpful from that standpoint. But I would say my favorite thing, honestly, is that you got obviously us is 21 and up to guys that are probably 80 years old and everything in between. So it's like they get to hear our ZBT experience versus we get to hear theirs, and obviously again everything in between. And they're all so different, especially because you got chapters of 200 guys and you got chapters of 40. So it's cool to hear those perspectives and hear especially how times have changed since then.
Yeah, if you're curious about what college was like at the University of Missouri in the 1950s, come on to the council. That's Fred and Beanie. I shouldn't say this while we're recording, but that's Martin Frost.
Yeah.
We'll delete that piece from the recording. We'll have Andrea sandwich that.
Ricky, you talked a little bit about some of the, or actually, who is it? Jeffrey, I think, or Matthew talked about the serving on the combating campus anti-Semitism sort of special project or subcommittee. Are there other opportunities like that within the council experience to kind of work on task force or other, sort of special ad hoc projects that, if folks are particularly interested or passionate about something, are there those opportunities available?
Yeah, there are a lot of niche committees and groups for anything that needs to get done at the time. And the council does a really great job of supporting us as undergrads. We can join a committee that we're really interested in, or if we're not so interested in one, we can move to another one. But we have a ton of different ways to get involved. There's also a corporate governance committee. There's a strategic plan committee. And there are a million others that I'm not thinking of right now, but there's a ton of different ways to get involved.
And if you're interested in influencing the direction of SOE or the journey, there are those experiences too. So I welcome all the feedback for sure. So, and Ricky, I apologize. Did you talk about kind of the role at convention, what their experience looks like at convention as well?
I just mentioned that they don't participate in some of the normal things that are in board meetings most of the time. You get to go and attend all the keynotes and the major stuff. And like this year, we're going to the Holocaust Museum and hearing from a speaker. The council takes part in all of those big ticket events and opportunities as well.
Good. Good. Now you talked about kind of who the council is looking for in terms of, you want someone who has had some experience, has attended some of our programs, does not necessarily have to have served as a chapter president or on IFC or anything like that. What are some of the other sort of qualifications, to be more specific? If someone is on here as a first year member, are they eligible, or are there any other requirements that folks should take into consideration as they're considering applying?
Yeah, so I'm going to put a link in the chat. And there's a document embedded in there. I don't want to go too far in the weeds, but it says download the job description. And that'll tell you a little bit more about some of the, what the opportunities are, what the responsibilities are. There's a minimum donation requirement, which we will not let be a barrier to you. If that is, if that potentially could be a barrier, we will not let that be a deciding factor. But some of the things that we're kind of, I think we're kind of looking for. There's no we. The international president makes the determination and selection of the undergraduate Supreme Councilors, and John's favorite line is that they serve at the pleasure of the international president, similar to the advisor liaison. And so sometimes he'll joke and he'll be like, Matthew, that's not pleasing to me, or something like that as a joke. So that's always fun. But the kind of committee is kind of Libby, I, and the international president. And Libby and I are not a part of the decision-making process. We do give kind of our consultation, our experiences related to coaching the chapters and dealing with the campus and stuff like that. So, I mean, from we interviewed like 15 men this last time, and we were having conversations of like, well, he was in a chapter who managed A, B, C, D, E. He was in a chapter that managed getting and moving into a new house. He was at a chapter where the campus had a really significant anti-Semitism event. He was on a campus where there was a tragic suicide that kind of rocked the campus. So we take a lot of those things into consideration as well to your lived experience. So not just the positions you hold, not just the programs you've attended, but just some of your lived experience. And so some of it, as with all positions, some of it's just by happen chance. I mean, you may be a part of a chapter or from a place that has really experienced something that really adds a unique dynamic and a unique voice to our board that we really need at that time, and can really help propel the fraternity in a strategic direction that it needs to go in. And so, you can have the best candidate in the world, and the best brother in the world, who's student body president, who's the governor's son, and on and on and on. But, there may be this other guy who maybe didn't have all that other brother, but he's the programming director who brought Get on the Ball back to campus, who, you just name it. And so, just don't get in your head that you have to fit this certain mold, and that you have to do these things, that you have to check these boxes, because it really, we are just trying to build the best team and make the most comprehensive voice of all 5,000 undergraduates that we possibly can, and try to advise the president to do that as well. And so, it just completely depends. I know that's that roundabout answer, but there really is no kind of checkbox. There really isn't. There isn't an interview evaluation. We just take a lot of those things into consideration. We like those chapters who started at 10, and then under Josh Roseman's leadership, they're at 90 now. Like we might need that, or we might need, a Jeffrey Harburg who transferred from two of our cornerstone chapters who've been around forever, to talk about the different experiences of those. And then, Matthew, who's like a quadruple to duple legacy, who's seen a lot of different things and been around the block, but who's in an established chapter, who's at a house owned by NHC. That's a different dynamic that our board needs to hear about. So, I could go on, and that's not to say just because we have those things, we don't want to add another. That's not to say that. It really just depends. So don't get in your head that we're only looking for one certain type of brother.
Yeah, that's good. Matthew, Jeffrey, or Joshua, want to share anything else about sort of the process of applying, or who should apply, etc.? Thoughts?
I'll just say, if you're interested, it doesn't hurt to apply.
Mm-hmm.
And you never know. I mean, you could get offered the position and realize that it's the best decision you ever made to just apply. So might as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, also, I don't remember that process being painful whatsoever. Even if you don't want to apply, I think having someone in your chapter, especially more so like an emerging leader of some sort, is a really good thing for your chapter in particular. Again, that's what happened to me. It's been a really good fit for me. It's been a really good experience for me to like bring back to my chapter essentially. Something I would like to keep going for us, but obviously it's like for the national side of it, the more the people that care, the younger guys that care, that's going to bring more power to the Supreme Council, because that's the older guys, they want input. It's hard for someone who's been out of fraternity for 40 years to come up with a decision that's going to make, everything work, versus they say something, we can kind of counter it, and it's like it could be a good idea, but we can tweak it to a point where it's more beneficial to us as undergrads.
And I think Ricky, Josh, and Jeffrey all said it best, that like there's no bad thing that could happen from applying. It doesn't hurt, and just you never know what could happen, so it doesn't hurt.
Yeah, yeah. So the link that Ricky shared in the chat is your go-to to learn about the position, to download the description, and to apply. The application link is there as well. So the deadline is April 17th. So that's 3-ish weeks away. So not a lot of time. So take a couple days to think about it. Talk with your advisor. Certainly, call in to any of us on staff to talk about it. Reach out to the current council members. I'm sure anyone would be willing to answer your questions. But just do it. I think that's the overwhelming sentiment, is just do it. It's good experience no matter what the outcome might be. But certainly, again, you'll find out a lot of information there. Well, unless any of you have any sort of specific other comments or things that you want to share, I think we can open the floor for questions, if everyone's okay with that. So anyone who's participating, if you have any questions, feel free to unmute yourself and ask the group.
And you don't have to just ask questions about the position itself.
Yes.
If Beanie wants to take a stance and ask some questions about why the heck are we non-pledging, non-hazing, you can ask those questions as well. So don't feel like you just have to ask questions about the position. You can ask policy-related questions as well.
Good.
Okay, guys, is National Office having a catered party for the eclipse?
That's a Kristen question. I don't live there yet.
Well, actually, I am inviting folks from my neighborhood over. So, Fred, you are more than welcome to fly up to Indy and join us if you want to.
Actually, I went to the one in 17, and right now I'm trying to figure out at the last minute where's get the best opportunity for a sunny day, and head there. So
Yep.
had asked.
I've heard of Bloomington. Yeah.
I had a brother who's pretty smart about it and planned his bachelor party in Austin that weekend. So what a way to remember your bachelor party.
No kidding. No
Or
kidding.
not remember the eclipse.
Yeah. Equal chances there,
clean
Ricky.
for the
Equal
recording.
chances. Yeah.
So yeah, maybe in Indianapolis. I'm not sure, but had to ask.
Yep. Any questions?
I actually did have a question regarding the kind of like the term of the position. Basically, I'm not too sure if we've gone over it. I know that Joshua had mentioned that his term was 1 year, I believe, or that he's currently in a 1 year. Is it possible, say, if we were to have a first year or a second year apply for the position, would they be able to have that position throughout their 4 or so years being an undergrad, or was it just a set 1 year? That was kind of my question.
It's a good one.
Yeah, it's a great one. So I'm going to give you another non-answer, brother. It depends, because Josh, I'm not even sure when Josh's term ends, to be honest, because it is completely at the discretion of John. So hypothetically, let's say his can either end in August or December when he graduates. So let's say it ends in August. The people that we pick will they'll either fill in a 1 year term, since Josh just had 1 year, or the president can give them 2-year terms, and kind of just, it depends on the candidate. It depends on kind of what we're looking for. It depends on the president and the term. Typically it is a 2-year term, but there are nuances that make it a little bit different. You don't, most presidents, I don't think, want to get in the habit of just filling term. I think they want to give someone a full new term and kind of start that term there. But the way our Constitution is written, it is my understanding that it is completely up to the international president to determine those terms. The council does overturn every 2 years. Well, I say overturn. They have to be reelected to their seats every 2 years. Most of the board stays the same even after that because they are reelected. So the idea is to try to get the undergraduates to mimic that as well. But you have graduations, you have things happen in people's lives, you have people, you know, you name it. We've had undergraduate Supreme Councilors drop the fraternity, and so that kind of puts a wrinkle in things, and it's always an interesting case. But 2 of them were from my chapter, oddly enough, at Memphis. So maybe I should have been that undergraduate Supreme Councilor, Kristen, but you know, so I hate to answer this question again with a non-answer, but just depends.
Awesome. Thank you.
Great. Any other questions? All right, who can they reach out to if they have any other questions? Any of you, Ricky, who's the best person for them to connect with?
Yeah, I think the website says me. So yeah, I can be a clearinghouse, and a lot of times I'll just copy the 4 of them in, or one in particular who I think could give you a really good answer to a question too. But yeah, anything related to the application, you can defer to me. And then if there's anything like a term like that question, I can get John on the phone, the international president, and get his response for kind of what he's thinking. But unless Josh has been told what's going on with his term, I'm genuinely not sure.
Doesn't look like it.
Yeah, no.
Guess we'll find out.
We'll find out next week when we're all together, I'm sure. So
Good. All right. Any parting thoughts from any of you 3? Just do it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you all, the panelists, Matthew and Jeffrey and Joshua, and of course, Ricky, for being on the call tonight. Thank you to everyone for participating. I am going to share here the link to the post assessment. So students that are on the call, click that and submit your responses for attendance credit. Again, this recording will be shared wherever webinars are shared. I think the YouTube channel especially, but again, share this with your brothers, share this with, you know, folks from other chapters who might be interested, might be, you know, particularly qualified or passionate about, you know, wanting to lead the fraternity and lead their chapter in unique ways. So again, we thank you for your time tonight. Thank you very much for your thoughtful answers and your, you know, hearing about your experiences. I definitely learned a few things, you know, about the position and certainly about you. And I'm just really grateful for your leadership and for your time on the council and for all the conversations you've been a part of and the decisions that you've helped make. We appreciate it. Again, reach out to Ricky if you have any questions. Otherwise, again, thank you so much for being here, and we hope you all have a good evening.